I'm a state representative Eddie Pashinski. This is my 8th term, finishing up my 16th year. I can tell you that it's an absolute honor to serve, and I'm running because I have several other projects that I want to make sure that we get finished. We are in a very interesting time frame in our lives. I am definitely not the youngest guy in the legislature, but my age and years of experience, plus also the work that I've done to develop relationships with people on both sides of the aisle, as well as in the community and on the federal level, I think is an advantage. I want to stay here, at least for this next term, until I believe that we're back to some sense of normalcy. And again, like I said, it is truly an honor to serve, and I have the energy. I have a great staff, both the House and in the Capitol, and we're ready to go.
Let's start off with the 2020 election, how that went, and some of the issues that people are talking about with whether it was a fair and free election. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have to say I did get to see parts of the event yesterday, the January 6th committee. I mean, the evidence seems to be overwhelming that there was a plan to overturn the election regardless of the outcome. And I think we've proven time and time again that it was a fair election. I am very concerned about the kind of misinformation that is being spread because it is dividing us up as Americans. The conversations about a civil war and the fact using weapons, people, this is us, it's Americans. We're not fighting some kind of enemy somewhere. So I am very concerned about that. And for those of you that may have received my weekly reviews or any of my maybe newsletters, you'll always see that I always end my statement with, please search for the truth, search for the facts, let the truth and the facts guide your words, actions, and your vote. I'm very proud to say I'm an American. I don't think America is an experiment. We're here for 244 years 46 years. In 4 more years, we're going to celebrate our 250th birthday. 250th year. Wow, that's pretty special. And we are now considered the most powerful and the wealthiest nation in the world. How did that happen? It happened because of the Constitution, the rule of law, and giving everybody a chance for an education to become whoever you want to be. You work hard enough, you can be whoever you want to be. So, yes, to me, it was a free and fair election. The allegations that they're making is nothing but a divisive and dangerous act of words, which will only lead to, unfortunately, some folks getting injured and, God forbid, anything else.
And what do you think the state should do regarding election administration? There had been, we passed Act 77, it was a bipartisan bill, and you still have these issues about mail-in votes and drop boxes, and even though there seems to be some sort of agreement on pre-canvassing before Election Day, the legislature's been unable to agree to doing that.
Well, thanks for your question there, Mike. Let me be clear. We should try to make it as easy as possible for our people to vote. Our lives have changed dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years because of the pandemic. You have more people that are elderly or people that are ill, people that have jobs where they travel. Why would we make it more difficult for them to vote? In my opinion, the mail-in ballots, and I might say, I'm sure you fellows know, that was a Republican proposal. As Democrats, we supported that proposal because we felt it would be better and easier for so many of our constituents to be able to vote and make it count. When Act 77 was being negotiated, as Democrats, we felt as though the time frame was wrong in being able to count your ballots in time, because most people expect the results, 11 o'clock news. And that's a fair judgment. The point is, when you talk about Philadelphia or Pittsburgh, your larger cities, and you're talking 400,000 or 500,000 mail-in ballots, the operation gets very complicated. So one of the things that we propose, by the way, there's about 10 different bills as Democrats that we have, but our Republican counterparts won't move them, and that is to, number one, make it easy by doing the pre-canvassing. And for the sake of our constituents, pre-canvassing means that you begin to operate the function of opening the outer envelope. That, we timed it. When you have to rip that outer envelope, open it up, take the other envelope out, rip that envelope out, and then take the ballot out, put it down, and flatten it out, it's a minimum of 30 seconds. So it becomes about arithmetic. You have 10 write-in ballots, you don't need any extra people. That could be done and you'll get the results. You have 10,000, well, now you got to make sure you have X number of people. You have 100,000 ballots, it becomes arithmetic. Now I will say that our Luzerne County Election Bureau bought that machine, which can open something like 40,000 ballots in an hour. So that's helped eliminate that aspect. But you still have the physical part of taking the second envelope out and going through that process. We felt as though the time frame of getting your ballots and then getting them back was pretty close with the way the Postal Service has been operating. We felt that could be a problem. You will notice on many of my mailers, I'm suggesting that our residents request their ballot before November 1st. Request your ballot in October, by the last week latest, so that you can get your ballot, you can verify it, send it back, send your information, so then they can actually send you, all the information you need. But again, our colleagues for some reason didn't want to do that, so all of our election bureaus are struggling, trying to make sure that they get everything done the best we can.
What is your position on abortion and the Republican plan to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot?
Well, the constitutional amendment removes the power of the governor, the veto power of the governor. And our country's been based on balance of power. 2 parties, 2 houses, a governor to balance whatever the issue is. And I want to make sure that the folks understand it could be very frustrating. I have to live it. But you know what it does? It forces everybody back to the table to renegotiate, and actually, in most times, you can actually make it better, make that bill better. So what they're trying to do is eliminate the potential of a governor veto. As far as abortion is concerned, my position has been the same. I believe that I am pro-life, and with the 3 exceptions. I come from a staunch Catholic family. My grandfather's brother was a priest. I appreciate and love the Catholic religion. But this is 2022, and the responsibility of raising a child is enormous. That decision, the health of the mother, in the case of rape or incest, that's between the doctor, that woman, her family. I will never interfere with that private decision. That's just the way, I come from that. I cannot understand. I have 3 wonderful daughters. I had a wonderful wife. How if they were raped, how they would be forced to carry the seed for 9 months. It wasn't an act of love, it was an act of violence. And that woman should have that right, and their doctor, her doctor, to make that decision. No, nobody else.
But what about the broader issue of access to abortion that doesn't involve rape or incest?
Well, once again, air. We need air. Without oxygen, we die in seconds or minutes. We need water. Without water, we die in days or weeks. Without food, we die in days, weeks, or months. What is one of the next human demands on us? It's the relationship. It's the sexual relationship between man and a woman. That's why there's a difference. And that drive creates mistakes. I don't know if we would ever be able to find out how many people have made that mistake. But there are safeguards, and those safeguards should be used. But in the end, that woman has to make the decision whether they have the mental ability, the physical ability, the financial ability, and the support network, whether they can actually raise that child.
The current law in Pennsylvania is that I think 24 weeks is the line that's drawn as to when a woman has the absolute choice to abort if she chooses. Are you okay with keeping that at 24 weeks?
I'm okay at that. If it's 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 15 weeks, many times women don't even know they're pregnant. There's no physical demonstration of the pregnancy. So that's why 24 weeks definitely. And that gives everybody sufficient time to make the difficult decision.
Where do you stand on taxes? We have the corporate income tax, and there's like a plan in place to reduce that. We have personal income taxes and property taxes and sales tax. You know, which of these do you want to see increased or decreased?
Well, I think you're aware that the legislature did pass a reduction in the corporate net income tax, of which I do support. I also want to make it clear that the governor and the Dems have proposed that for several years. The governor proposed it that we should at least go down to 7.99 or go eventually down to 4.99. I think it's 0.5% per year that we're going to decline. But in addition to that, which didn't happen, was closing the Delaware loophole. So we have a lot of major corporations that are in Pennsylvania making their product, selling the product, and not paying Pennsylvania tax because their home address is Delaware, and Delaware has no corporate net income tax. So look, life is a balance, and it's got to be a balance between business and government and the people and taxes, etc. You know, we wouldn't have roads if we didn't have taxes. We wouldn't have schools if we didn't have taxes. So the balance is what I'm looking for. I'm glad to see it's down to from 9.9, we were one of the top 3, I think, states in the country that had the highest corporate net income tax. It's down to 8.99 this year, and we'll go down 0.5 every year until we reach 4.9. So as far as corporate net income tax, I think we're beginning to address that. So that's going to go down. But we must address the Delaware loophole. That's number one. Now, number two. If that occurred, Pennsylvania then would receive large sums of business taxes. Those sums of business taxes could then help relieve property tax, could then provide more money for PennDOT to fix roads. So again, I'm using the word balance. I don't want to put the big businesses out of business. That's not the case. But I expect them to pay their fair share, just like Every American does. Every Pennsylvanian does. Property taxes has been an issue. Part of that reason is because here in Pennsylvania, we don't have a balanced system. Wilkes-Barre area has been underfunded dramatically, nearly $30 million a year. That is a heavy burden to try to make up that difference. Hanover area has been underfunded. Crestwood has been underfunded. Pretty much all of our local public schools have been underfunded. That's forced then the locals to have to come up with enough money to be able to pay for their expenses while the school district is furloughing and eliminating courses. So again, we come back to the word of balance. How do we balance the property tax with the state addition of the dollars? Pennsylvania has been funding public schools at about a 34 to 36, 38%, rather than that 50, 55% level. That's one of the reasons why we had the problem. You've heard of Level Up? Level Up, the governor brought out, it's like $300 million, to try to take the lowest funded schools and bring them up to the level it's supposed to be. We had the fair funding formula, if you remember that. And the fair funding formula has made a slight difference, but yet school districts that have a great tax base, don't need the state money, are still getting dollars that could be distributed to other places. Once again, we come back to the word of balance. So the governor in the new budget, it was like it's over $1.8 billion that's come in. Our local schools have received about $35 million in Luzerne County. That's tremendously helped our school districts, and it should have prevented, tax increases. I will tell you there may be a school district or two that raised them, and that's because the legislature was late in passing the budget. Your school districts have to pass their budget by June 30th. If you remember, we didn't pass ours, I think, until July 8th. So some of your districts may have raised their taxes by somewhat.
Fair funding issue, do you support Wilkes-Barre area's lawsuit and the ongoing case that's before
Yes.
the Commonwealth Court now?
Yes, and I give them credit. Sometimes words aren't enough. Sometimes actions will cause a reaction. And those schools had every right to make known the fact that they are severely underfunded. Take a look at the school districts that are underfunded. They're primarily city schools. Why would they need more money? You have different language barriers. You have different ethnicities. You have folks that are coming from broken families. These kids need extra help. We were at the chamber meeting this morning, and I brought up the fact, when you and I went to school, maybe not you, Michael, because you're younger, but definitely me, you didn't have breakfast in school. You didn't have lunch. You brought a little lunch pail with you. You took that to school, and you certainly didn't have dinner. You didn't have classes after school to take care of the kids because no one was at home. Our lives have changed dramatically. So those costs in those schools are greater than, let's say, in a school district where you have affluence. So generally, when a family has sufficient funds, what else is happening to those children? They're getting an education at home. They're able to go to a Broadway play. They're able to go out to dinner. They're able to go to a fair. They're able to go to an art museum or a concert. So those kids are now getting far more education than those that do not have that. Therefore, the school has to try to make up the difference and get those children, prepared for adulthood. So I hope I made my point.
Regarding education, what do you think about Republican plans calling for school choice, and what do you think of the Mastriano education plan?
My position has always been the same. People have choices in America. That's one of the things that's great about it. So if you want to send your child to a private school or a parochial school, you want to have a virtual school, that is up to you, your family, to make that choice. But I want to remind everybody that even the Constitution identifies the fact that public schools are important to the success of this country. What do I mean? The makers, the founders of this great country, put in the Constitution that everybody had the right to a free and fair public education. And why was that so important? Because it gave every kid a chance to succeed with an education. Doesn't matter what side of the tracks you come on. You go to school, you have a chance to learn, you work at learning, you have a chance now for the next step. I don't know whether you guys, maybe within your own families. My dad was a coal miner. I'll never forget my dad. He would come up the alley. At those times we had alleys, not lanes, and it was ashes in the alley. And I would wait for him. I'd see him, the whistle would blow. That would tell everybody that shift is out of work. Wait for my dad. I could see him coming up the alley. Then I was allowed to leave the yard, go down, get his lunch pail, come back. Now he's all dirty, working in the mines. Go into cellar. That's where he took his coal mining clothes off. And he washed up, put on the other clothes before he went upstairs. And he said to me, "There's no way you're going to work in those quote, quote, quote mines. I don't care what you learn in school, you're going to college." That was it. And that was the pathway. Our parents came here, or our grandparents came here for freedom of, by, and for the people. And they didn't mind working hard, because they were working hard for what? For their family, right? And now they wanted their family to continue on. Well, I'm the first one in my family to get a 4-year degree. Now I have 4 children. 3 of them have 4-year degrees. They now have a better life because of that education. So it doesn't matter whether it's an apprenticeship, a plumber, electrician, carpenter, you have a skill that you've learned. Or if you become a scientist, a doctor, a teacher, a nurse, a lawyer, whatever, you have learned something. You have learned skills that will allow you to fund your life. And if you have a family, to do the same. And that's why education is so important. There is a greater focus right now on your plumbing, all of your labor organizations, because as I think you all know, there's a shortage of everything. And their apprentice programs are fantastic. Those kids go there, they learn on the job. It's a 4 or 5 year program. They don't have debt, and they come out knowing they're a certified plumber, electrician, etc. So the key is education, and that's why I'm a staunch supporter of public ed. I know the value of it. I've seen all the kids that come there, and you can tell the kids that come from a nurturing family and kids that don't have a lot. And that's why those schools are so important. Keep in mind that that education also contributes to our economy. When you have a job, you pay taxes, you buy products, you elevate the financial status of America. So I am public ed. I support our community colleges. They are fantastic. The cost for them is quite less than even our state schools. We have our state schools, which are great. And then you have your private universities. If you can afford $35,000, $50,000, $70,000 a year, terrific. You know, but the folks that from northeastern PA, we're more of the state school because we came from regular hardworking folks.
So just to be clear, you're against a plan where the public dollar amount would follow a student to whatever school he chooses, including a private school.
The private school, you have a choice. I just said the
You don't want to
Constitution.
see public dollars go to the private school.
Not to a private school. Now, charter schools are a little different. A charter school is part of the legal obligation. That's a choice for our public school kids. But the process the distribution of funds has to be realigned appropriately. And what I'm referring to is our public school, let's say, can do virtual learning for $3,000 to $5,000. They go to that charter school virtual learning, we're paying $9,000 to $12,000. Your public school has to accept and does accept all children with disabilities, special needs. Some are severe. Some special needs will cost the school district $75,000, $100,000, $125,000. Those special needs generally don't go to your charter school. They'll take the less costly special needs student. All right, now so what I'm trying to say is, look, let's just, once again, use the word balance. How do we balance it? If the charter schools are going to operate with Pennsylvania property tax school dollars, then they should be also, those dollars should be distributed in the same fashion that you're doing at a public school. Shouldn't cost you any more over here than it does here. That's one of the objections that we're having. And again, I can't see how you're gonna raise the taxes on your property taxes when some people are doing it for profit. Just keep that in mind.
How do you want to improve the state of the economy and improve the conditions that have, inflation and job creation?
We are in a very unique time frame in our lives. I don't think anybody could foresee the pandemic. I don't think it was the first time in 100 years of that kind of thing. The process of not going out and meeting, not going to a restaurant, not meeting with your family and friends, doing everything over a screen. I mean, our lives really changed dramatically. Then on top of that, we have to come out of that. We have to try to save lives. Thank God for the federal dollars that came through, and the medical aspects of everything, the shots and vaccines and so on. All right, thank God. Now we're not dying. Some people are still getting sick, but now we're coming back to a normal way of living. Really? What do you mean? Well, before the pandemic, the minimum wage was $7.25 an hour. Locally here, we were paying about $8.30 an hour. Chewy came to town, and this is before the pandemic. What did they raise their minimum to? $9.30. So even before the pandemic, the availability of jobs, kinds of jobs, and the amounts of money that they could make, people could make, began changing. When the pandemic hit, it became even worse. Why? There were a whole bunch of people that couldn't handle the pressure, especially nurses, teachers, so many people that had to work under tough conditions. A lot of the people that were retirement age or near retirement age, they retired. They said, I can't do it. My health, I can't handle it. Okay, now we have a shortage. We have a shortage everywhere. So what happened? What happened? Now people started raising their minimum wage or raising the salaries of their people in order to attract people to their business. How many of you remember, I can remember Chewy going up to $17, $18, $19 an hour. I think it was Advanced Auto Parts offering a $10,000 sign-on bonus. People that were making $8 now could make 12. So all of those things began changing the process. And as a result, we're still in that time frame of flux. This morning we had the meeting with the Chamber of Commerce, and this is what we were talking about. How can we now get qualified employees? And we have talked about the idea of developing a program similar to FFA or 4-H That's your Future Farmers of America, where you actually take the kids, teach them things in school, in their public school, in their tech school, whatever, then bring them to the manufacturer, bring them to that particular job, teach them on that job, and begin to give the kids a taste of what it's like to be a forklift driver, what it's like to work in a manufacturing company. How do you make those parts? Well, maybe I could become an engineer to design the parts to make for that, whatever we're making. So when I say we're in this transition period, we're now trying to find ways that we can get people educated, well-trained enough to be able to fill these jobs. Now I'm going to just throw out a proposal that I have. One of the proposals I have is called a delayed payment plan. One of the problems with kids getting an education is money. Many of the kids that go to school end up with considerable debt. The delayed payment plan is not a giveaway. It is a delayed loan. And what I mean by that is, let's say we need these nurses, we need these teachers. Okay, anybody that goes into this education plan, we're going to do a couple things. Number one, you don't have to pay a dime as long as you maintain your academic standards. Attend school, whatever is required of you. We could take that student after they learn X amount, and then they could be put into the classroom for whatever they're qualified to do. Also a learning experience for them. Also 2 or 3 other people within that school that can help that school manage their operation. Now they have 2 years in. Now they know more. Now they have 3 years in. Now they know more. Now they have 4 years in. Now they know more. And now that manufacturer, that school district, that hospital, they also know that student. And now they graduate. Now they have a job. Once they have the job, now they begin to pay back their college loan, interest-free, for a 10-year period. That gives them chances to financially get themselves set, whether it's a car, whether it's clothes, whether it's an apartment, whether it's getting married, whatever, a house. Gives them a chance. They're not in huge debt. What else does it do? They're making money, they're paying back their loan, they're also buying products. Remember, when you're buying things, that's jobs for somebody else. So we all rise to the occasion. We all benefit from that. Now, again, that's my proposal. I haven't been able to get it out of the House. Again, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle don't seem to have an interest in it. But again, this is not a giveaway. This is a way to develop someone who will have a great future that will also give back to the community and to the country.
You mentioned the minimum wage. Should the state increase that?
Oh, should we? Oh, yeah. Again, the governor, we have been promoting that for a long time because of the fact that, cost of living has gone up. What are you going to make at $7.25 an hour? What are you going to make at $8.30 an hour? Unless you're subsidizing, the other incomes in your family. You can't raise a family. You can't get out of the hole with that. $12 an hour? Yes. What we recommended was you can go to 9, you can go to 10, you can go to 12 before you don't have to jump from where we are to $15 an hour. We're not recommending that. Just as we're doing with the corporate net income tax, we can do the same thing with your minimum wage. But as I said, at this point, it's not an issue because nobody's paying $7 an hour, or $8 an hour, $9 an hour. They're paying a lot more than that.
Environmental issues, your positions on issues such as mine reclamation and fracking and cutting carbon emissions?
Yes, I don't have to tell you where we come from, Northeast. Our mine lands, we have been reclaiming for decades. And by the way, let's be proud of the fact that northeastern PA has the finest anthracite coal in the world, and that coal energized America for 100 years plus other parts of the country or other parts of the world. So what we don't want is for the mining company to come in, extract the Pennsylvania natural resource, make mega dollars, and then leave the people and the community with what's left. That's not right. The orange stream, the yellow stream. No, let's do it the right way. So, by the way, just two weeks ago, we had our policy committee up here, and we were doing a tour of mine reclamation. We were over in Larksville, we were at the Earth Conservancy, went to different places. And I mean, even our arena, that's mine reclamation, dump reclamation, whatever. The brand new school, Wilkes-Barre School, what an incredible, no one would ever think that there was mine land under there. So it's how we do it. Let me say that the natural gas companies have improved their operations 100-fold. And I've also been on site at their drilling sites, as well as conventional oil. I've been on their sites in western Pennsylvania. If you remember when Marcellus first became an issue, I'm sure you remember those commercials where you saw the woman turning the water in the spigot and the flame was coming out. We heard about the dumping of the wastewater. We still don't know what chemicals are in the water that they use to do that operation. So again, we come back to balance. Pennsylvania is blessed with a magnificent state, magnificent forests, fields, lakes, rivers, streams. That's an asset. Our tourism industry brings in billions of dollars. Nobody's going to want to move here. Nobody's going to want to come here if our streams and rivers are polluted. You guys may be too young, but I remember when you could fish in Susquehanna and catch bass, and then you couldn't catch a thing because of the remnants of the coal, of the streams that went in there. Now, if you go back to fishing in the Susquehanna, because of all the money, effort, science, and innovation, you can catch bass in there again. So those are assets. I'm always looking for that balance. I don't want to cut the gas company out. No way. That is jobs. That is profitability for Pennsylvania. That can help us attract other things. But it has to be done scientifically, safely, and responsibly. When we talk about the environment, you know that we talk about solar now, wind. How many years ago? 15? You didn't see no windmills up on the mountain. Solar around here? What? Are you kidding me? But I think we're beginning to realize, what do you mean the polar cap is melting? Really? Yeah, we've seen pictures. What do you mean the storms are more vicious and powerful than ever before? I mean, I don't have to tell you, we just saw what happened in Florida. How about the fires out in California, Washington, Oregon? Wait a minute, not just here. What about the fires out in Europe? We never heard about that stuff. Wait a minute, what about Lake Mead down to what? 40%, 30% capacity? Are you kidding me? Look, things are changing. We have kids, we have grandkids. We have to be responsible, do what's scientifically correct, do it in a way that we can still provide business and jobs, do it in a safe manner. I think both can be done. And by the way, you have nuclear, which is the most consistent power. And by the way, again, I've been on site at our nuclear plants. The security measures are outstanding. That energy is constant. Doesn't matter whether there's sun, wind, rain, snow, that energy flows. So It's a matter, again, of balance. Let's utilize our resources responsibly, and let's make sure we use science to guide us for the future.
This Nacero proposed plant, not in your district, but kind of nearby.
Yeah, in my hometown.
Yeah, any thoughts on that?
Well, number one, if you're going to provide hundreds of jobs in building and then hundreds of jobs in the operation, is it like our distribution plants? I don't know. There's some unanswered questions regarding Nacero. Are they going to pipe the gas in? I like the idea of changing the gas to liquid. Once you liquefy it, is it going to go by truck? Is it going to go by rail? What kind of time frame are we on? There's still some unanswered questions. I do support the concept that we're going to provide a place where you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of jobs, good paying jobs. But I want to also tell you, we just were up at Upward Farms. I think you guys covered that. Upward Farms in Hanover Township, where it's vertical growing. There's no pesticides. There's no fertilizers. They fertilize the greenery with water, and the combination of taking the white striped bass and the normal striped bass, cultivating them in fresh water, their residue becomes the fertilizer. There's now no nitrogen, no phosphorus, no nothing. That's going to be about 400 jobs to complete, and I believe it's about 130 jobs full-time. So, again, did we ever think we would do vertical farming in Hanover? Did we ever think that we were going to be doing fish, cultivating fish, in a building? So again, the science, the inventions, the ingenuity of the human brain is just spectacular.
And what are your positions on government ethics and transparency issues such as per diems, gerrymandering, campaign finance?
Okay, well, let's take them one at a time now. Campaign finance, out of control. We all know what Citizens United is, right? We all know what ALEC is, right? That's changed our democratic government process 1,000 times. The amount of money that's being brought into the political environment is obscene. The millions and tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars being spent, some in truths, many in lies. That money could be utilized for a whole bunch of far better things. So when I talk about Citizens United, frankly, that should be removed. Of, by, and for the people. Everybody should have the right to donate to whoever they want for whatever reasons they want. But you shouldn't have the right to buy the election. You shouldn't have the right to overthrow something because of your money. And Citizens United, and by the way, it's in that little book that I wrote, Is Our Government Broken? I'm more than happy to give you some copies. I highlight that part. If you'll allow me, I use an example, Congressman Kondrasky, which most of us remember that name, good guy from, once again, Congressman from Nanticoke, my hometown, know the congressman and his wife very well. I said to him, how much money did you need in order to run your campaign? He said between $250,000 and $400,000 to run his Congress. That same spot, you need 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 million? Come on. So you're a good person. You could become a politician. You could become a legislator, a senator, representative, congressman. David, you could too. Where are you going to get that kind of money? And once you take that kind of money, then that means your door better be what? Wide open. That money influences the legislation. I'm saying balance once again. Citizens United should not be there. That should be taken out. Everyone should have the opportunity to run, raise your money appropriately, and do the job for the people. What were the other
What
two?
about the state? Should there be a limit on how much you can give to a state candidate?
I think if you got rid of Citizens United, that wouldn't be a problem anymore. Because again, yes, that would eliminate that kind of thing. What happens if some guy comes in and wants to give my opponent $1 million? Well, with that million, you can tell the people anything you want, whether it's true or not. That's going to influence and possibly change votes. So, money does have that effect.
I really want to address the per diems, because
Sure.
I know that you take the per diem.
Yes, I
A lot
do.
of people don't. So that means you don't itemize, you just take the single.
That's
I
correct.
believe you also take a car allowance.
That's correct.
That's come under some criticism, not only from your opponent, but from other people in Harrisburg. A lot of people choose not to do the per diems. So how do you defend taking that?
Well, I'm going to tell you why I did it from the beginning. Because when we were given orientation and they explained the purpose of the car, the state car, and the purpose of the per diem. First of all, the per diem is a normal, accepted business practice. Anybody that has a job that has to travel because of an assignment, they generally pay for their hotel, their meal, or whatever. They have their salary, but because it's over and above. So for me, it's a travel time of 2 hours. They said to us, at that time, it was about 10 to 12,000 miles per year. If you were going to travel more than 10 to 12,000 miles per year, it would be less expensive for the public if you had a state car than if they paid me the 58 cents a gallon or whatever it is now. I don't even know what it is. So the way that's done, they'll pay you X amount of cents per mile to pay you for your expenses. Yes, they'll pay, and by the way, there's a limit on, even if you submit bills, there still would be a limit on what they would pay you for your hotel. There's still a meal allowance, so you can't go over that. And then that was the same thing with the per diem. The per diem was, it's a standard, natural business practice. The state abides by that federal set of guidelines. If my constituents feel as though they don't want me to do that, I don't have a problem with that. But I just want to say that if I'm traveling 15, 17,000 miles a year, now I'm actually costing them more by taking the amount of money they give me for gas. There was one other part of that. I think.
Oh, gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering, yes. Gerrymandering has gotten out of control as well. This is the first year that organizations that have studied the legislative map have stated that it is the fairest mapping that they've seen in 30 years. Gerrymandering is a process where they try to fit certain populations into certain districts. In Pennsylvania, we have 203 House districts. Some are in rural areas. Some are in high-populated city areas. Someone that's in a high-populated city area will have a small geographic footprint. Somebody that's in a lower population will have a huge geographic footprint. So it's to try to section off the state in a way that provides for representation for all the people in the state. But what's transpired is trying to cut people out and put certain people in certain areas who will vote for X and take certain people out of this area who will vote for candidate Y. Look, it's an election. You have A and B. A stands for this, B stands for this. Let the people choose. So I think there's a way that you can have independent people select the maps, take the legislature out of it completely, and you may end up with the fairest map. But right now, all of the organizations that criticize, that analyze, that, including our institutions of higher learning that study this, any poli-sci majors study how this goes down, they will tell you that this is the fairest map they've seen in a while.
Do you support any new gun regulations on the age to purchase a firearm, or any types of prohibitions on types of guns to be sold?
My position, again, has been the same. I support the Second Amendment. I believe that everybody has a right to protect themselves, their family, their property. I believe, however, that, for an automobile, you have to take a test. You have to fill out papers. You have to register. You have to have insurance. But there's requirements, because the responsibility of driving an automobile is life-threatening. Well, it's the same thing with a weapon. If you don't receive the proper instruction on how to handle that weapon, an accident could be the death of an individual, or certainly the injury of an individual. So I'm for responsible gun regulations. What do I mean? I have several guns, by the way. But the point that I want to make is, I am completely against any kind of weapon that was designed for war. Any kind of weapon that was designed for war was designed to do what? Kill the enemy. That's it. Mass. 60 rounds, 30 rounds. Why is a .50 caliber outlawed? Why is a machine gun outlawed? But yet an AK-47, an AR-15, which can shoot just about as fast. We don't have a chance. There's five of us in a room. Somebody comes in with an AK-47, we don't have a chance. Somebody comes in with a .38 5-shot revolver, we got a chance. This is outrageous. Who would have ever thought we had to have metal detectors, police guards, at schools, elementary schools, for God's sake? Because some deranged individual is going to take an AK-47 and go in that school and kill innocent people? That's insanity. I'm sorry. We are Americans. We shouldn't be killing Americans. And I believe that that gun, again, I believe you have a right to protect yourself, your family. But there should be instruction. There should be a permit. Yes, if there's someone that has mental disabilities, or someone that is extremely angry and they go to try to buy a gun, why would you sell it to them? That's crazy.
What about
What else?
a red flag law that would actually take away someone's gun if there were certain issues that were raised in front of a judge?
Would you take away a CDL license from a guy who has questionable ability? Would you take that driver's license away from them because they have questionable ability, whether they can handle that car? I would. Why should innocent people die because an individual has some disability, mental otherwise?
And what about increasing the age to buy a gun?
Yeah. Gun ownership, I'm going to say the old days, and I want to remind everybody, the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. You know what those arms were then? It was a musket. And the militia, who was the militia then? It was the farmer, the merchant, the banker, the shoemaker. We didn't have an army, Navy, Marines. We didn't have a state police. We didn't have a National Guard. The word militia has been abused. So when we talk about a weapon, that gun, that gun was also used for food. Our families went hunting to get a deer, which then helped that family with meat for X number of months. That was food. That was saving money. I have no problem with that. Responsible gun ownership, I'm with you 100%.
21.
21, I think, definitely. I know that there's some concerns about where we let our kids go into the armed services, but in the armed services, there's incredible amount of training. You know, there's a definite discipline within that organization. By the way, speaking of that, you go on any military base, where are those guns? They're locked up in those lockers. They're not allowed to carry their guns freely on those bases. So, again, balance, trying to find that common ground.
What about legalizing recreational marijuana?
We've had plenty of time now to analyze this. We've found out that medical marijuana has many, many advantages. I believe that the state, is trying to manage that business, and in most cases, it's been done well. The science community, the health community have now indicated that marijuana, is helpful in certain conditions. I don't see it much different than alcohol.
The state GOP has targeted you with a lot of negative mailers. Why do you think that is?
Because they don't have a platform. What are they for? I've already told you what I'm for. I have 16 years. The people know what I'm for. I have no problem meeting with anyone. And by the way, my door is open to all 60 or 65,000. I don't discriminate between race, color, creed, or political party. It's an honor to serve all the people. As I said, we're all Americans. So if that's the way they think they can win, then that's the way they'll have to go. I have a record. You can challenge my record. I don't think my opponent does have a record, so maybe that's why. I also like the Czechoslovakian bowling shirt on 2 of those ads. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I want you to know that I'm blessed, and I'm blessed because of the fact that I got together again with the same guys I started with in the band when I was 18 years old and they were 18 years old. And the people have welcomed us so beautifully. And those reunion dances and things, it's just an uplifting moment for all of us. A shout out to Joe Nardone, who started it all. I think the world of him, and we're good buddies, but those Czechoslovakian bowling shirts certainly catch your eye.
Round of questions? We're good?
One more?
Do you want one more?
No, I don't know. No, we got all of them?
I think we covered them all.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we was pretty efficient there. I think you hit them all.
I appreciate it very much. And fellas, I'm going to say this to you. Please, you guys have to print that truth. I tell you, if it wasn't for the news media, like you guys, I mean, the stuff that they're saying on some of the news is just pathetic. And I'll tell you this right now, I'm going on record. I put my hand on the Bible, along with my other colleagues. Policemen do the same. Armed forces. Swear, protect, defend the Constitution of the United States Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with fidelity. That means honesty. This is a contract with my constituents. Their trust in me means a lot. I would never try to mislead them in anything that I do. And I'm very worried about what's been happening because people are looking at national, congressional leaders they're lying through their teeth. And now it's creating confusion and a very dangerous situation. Civil war? What have we forgotten? 600,000 men and women died in all our wars, World War I, II, Korea War, Vietnam, to protect what we have. Now all of a sudden, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's insanity. I give such credit to that January 6th commission because they've given everybody the truth. I say, please spread that truth. I believe there's more good than not. I believe more people will then say, hey, we're going too far. Let's not mess things up for our kids, grandkids. What examples are they providing our kids and grandkids? No, I'm not gonna accept that subpoena. I'm not gonna follow the law. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. That's the attitude, and that's also permeated in our House, Senate, as well as the Nationals. So it's going to take some time, and the people have to put the pressure on their legislators to do the right thing. I ask you, anytime I can be of help, get information, don't ever hesitate. I don't need the publicity, I'm just saying if there's any way we can help, but I'm worried about it for my kids, grandkids. Can't believe it.